Hello everybody. Today we are continuing the critique we started of Skyrim last Friday. This is going to be a relatively similar time frame as the last one, probably about an hour and a half, maybe a bit less. Was this where we were? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. We were just facing the other direction. Okay, so for people that are just tuning in for this one, what this is we're going to be going through base Skyrim. No mods are installed. This is the PC Special Edition, so we do have all the DLC. And we will be taking a look at most of the elements of the game and just kind of talking about them, having a conversation, comparing and contrasting how other RPGs and previous Bethesda games do it, as well as newer Bethesda games like Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. And we'll just be having a nice little discussion. And as I mentioned briefly in the last video, the original goal of this was to basically make myself familiar enough with the design of Skyrim to make a mod that I think shores up some of the problems of the game, which I think a lot of people will be familiar with. One second, we're just fixing something with the stream here. Just about ready. Come on, Twitch, you can cooperate with me, please. Make sure the stream is all set, and we are good. Okay. Alright, so back to the game. We have a level up available. We'll go ahead and do this first and talk about the skill system a little bit before we get into Solitude. So I think what we're going to do for this is go mostly just for sort of a mixed build. I'm not particularly going to try to do anything on higher difficulties. We're just going to stick to Adept. So I think first level up, I feel like we should probably just take health. Just for a baseline. What we're going to mostly be looking at is, I think we're going to choose if we want to do either one-handed or two-handed. Right now we're kind of in two-handed. I do want to go into smithing and enchanting, so these perks are going to be pretty important. And I'm probably also going to do some... Actually, I kind of want to go for like a spell sword type build. So we might do a mix of one-handed and spells, I think will be what we go for, as well as probably light armor. And we'll try and enchant our stuff ourselves so that we can have good magic perks or enchantments on armor with more armor value than most of the base game stuff. Yeah, so for right now, I think a good place to start, is it pickpocket that I want? No, not pickpocket, lockpicking. There's certain perks I know I want. Okay, no, the perk I'm thinking of is in Ordinator, not base game. So for this, I think we're just going to start out with, let's see, what magic do we think we want to use? I think I'm definitely going to want to use Alteration. I'm probably going to use a bit of Conjuration and maybe a bit of Illusion. Let's look in here. So calm spells. I don't want to go too far into Illusion, I think, because I really do want to show off stuff like the AI. Although this does give a good opportunity to mess with it. With the sake of some simplicity right now, I think we're going to go with one-handed, since that's what we're going to be using for a majority of the game. So just get Armsman. That also means right now I want to swap out. I've been using a heavy weapon. I want to swap out to just my iron sword. And do we have a shield? We should favorite that. There we go. Put that on our left hand. Alright, great. So yeah, just in time to say hello to Rogvir. Yeah, I know. We're gonna have a discussion about Rogvir. Actually, if I remember correctly, we do have... There's one thing I do want to change in the settings. I believe that sprint is bound to something weird. Yeah, alt. We want that to be shift. Then run to be alt. That should be good. Okay. Yep, okay, now we can sprint. Great. So we're gonna go in, we're gonna watch Rogvir and his untimely fate.
They can't hurt Uncle Rogvir. Tell them he didn't do it.
Positions.
Svar, you need to go home. Go home and stay there until your mother comes.
Traitor! You betrayed us!
Get on with it! You should tell her that her uncle is scum that betrayed his High King. Best she know now, Advar.
You're all heart, Vivian.
Rogver, you helped Ulfric Stormcloak escape the city after he murdered High King Torrig. By opening that gate for Ulfric, you betrayed the people of Solitude.
He doesn't deserve to speak!
There was no murder. Ulfric
Liar.
challenged Torrig. He beat the High King in fair combat. Such is our way. Such is the ancient custom of Skyrim and all Nords.
I talked about the Civil War a bit in the last session of this, and I think this is a good scene to showcase some of my problems with it, and that I think the scene is cool
On this day,
that you go here and you
I
find
go to
Rogvir, but
Sovngarde.
there's a few problems. You can't really save Rogvir, and if you do, it doesn't do anything. I'm not even trying right now, just because like I don't want to mess up a bunch of the scripted stuff that's going on. But yeah, saving Rogvir has really no point, which seems weird, because if you're playing a Stormcloak character and you come here, and you would probably try to save Rogvir if you haven't been to Solitude yet. But nothing really happens. That's one problem I have.
To bad rubbish, I say.
I do think this scene is pretty interesting,
Well,
as a nice like introduction to what the political climate of Skyrim is like in this era. But the player has no connection to any of these characters if they're coming here like we did, literally just after getting out of Whiterun.
If you're
Or out
heading
of
to the Blue
Riverwood. We haven't
Heights,
even been to
you might want
Whiterun
to
yet. So if this is the
rethink
first
that
city
path.
you get to, and I think the last episode showed pretty well that if you're just exploring and just wandering around, it's fairly easy to just wander into Solitude. And like we didn't even run into any of the marshes that's usually how I get to Solitude, is go through the marshes where the Dark Brotherhood abandoned house is. We didn't even go through there, so we didn't have to deal with the frostbite spiders. All we did was just basically walk here. And we didn't have any challenges on the way. So this is like, basically this is the first city we're being introduced to in our playthrough. And like that's an inherent thing with RPGs. You can't really control where the player is going to go if you don't have a like strictly leveled environment, and Skyrim is one of the games that doesn't do that. They have the world kind of levels with you. Which is something I like about the game, personally. I know a lot of people don't like it, because it doesn't feel super RPG, but it does do a good job of letting the player kind of go around and do whatever they want. Like right now we're just picking some flowers. I don't know why I'm heading over here. This is normally, I tend to play with Legacy of the Dragonborn installed, and this is where the museum is in this district. But right now we don't really have any real reasons to be here. Let's look at the map. So all we have on our map right now, yeah, this is the path we took. We passed by the Apprentice Stone. That was like the only marsh area we went by, and it wasn't very big. Yeah, I think, yeah, we haven't even been to Whiterun yet. So what I think we want to do, let's look at our quest log, see what we have to check. Right now we literally just have this. I'm tempted to do the Imperial Legion quest line, because I think that does have a lot of opportunity to show some of the storytelling strengths of Skyrim. The Stormcloak line is pretty good as well, although I think the Stormcloaks, you don't get as much of a good characterization of them, whereas the Empire, if you've played Oblivion, you have a good idea of who the Imperials are. And I think it's generally more familiar. And like for me, I'm a person that's played a lot of Elder Scrolls games. They're one of my favorite series, so I think I'll stick with the Empire for this. But yeah, there's not a lot going on here. Oh, this is closed. Okay. What time is it? That would be why it's closed. We're getting here at 4 a.m. The Winking Skeever is open. Yeah, we don't have a
Papa
lot
says I
going on
won't see
here.
Rogvir anymore. But he wouldn't tell me why not.
Someone else will probably tell you. Yeah, it's like little stuff like that. That gives some character to Rogvir, but we still don't know who Rogvir is.
Gregarious, just like him. He says it means smart, but my brother says he's wrong.
It's a rude brother. It's also like all the children, they start with stuff like my papa says, which is very, it gets old after a little while, especially if you're hearing the same line over and over. Let's talk to Corvus.
Welcome to the Winking Skeever, friend.
And I think people do tend to pick on Skyrim for not having very many voice actors for the general NPCs, and that is a legitimate problem, but it doesn't bother me quite as much. Although I think something that really would have helped is if the voice actors were doing more differing voices. Like Bellathor's voice actor does a lot of the same thing. He's super recognizable. Heard new rumors lately. See if we can get any
Barnius
rumors.
Junius stopped by here on his way to court. He was worried about something. I'm sure Falk Firebeard could tell you what.
Yeah, it's like that kind of thing. I think I like rumors as a way to give you little bits that should lead you to quest lines. But what I
think
don't
the
like...
Bard's College might be looking for recruits. You should speak to the
This
head of
line's
the
a little
college
better,
for the
what I was about
armor.
to say. So the first line, they mentioned Falk Firebeard, and it's like, I feel
the
like
winking
this
Skeever next
guy,
time you're
if he's
footsore.
explaining to you something
something?
about Solitude, and he's super familiar with the area because he's the innkeep, he's going to say stuff like, oh, the Firebeards. Like, he'll refer to people by probably their last names and not mention first names. It just kind of comes off as weird. Yeah, we'll talk to
Can you
Noster.
spare a septum?
What's
I
your
was
story,
the finest
Noster?
scout in the Legion once. Tracked down all the places in the wilds that were causing people trouble.
I would put the mouse off the edge
Lost
to
my
hide
helmet
it,
in
but
one
we
of
can't
the
really
old
do that
caves.
without moving the camera.
My pretty, pretty helmet. Life just got worse after that.
I'll find that
Oh, you
helmet for you.
could? I sure would love to have it again. Could show you some of my old scouting tricks. What?
You want the number?
I was there. I fought in the Great War. I was on the field at Anvil. And when I was struck down, they left me. You understand? They left me for dead. I didn't leave them.
Yeah, I like the little details they
I
have
do
about
miss
these
that
characters that are
helmet.
just here. Like, Noster's not important to anything, but it's nice that you can talk to him and, like, hear his story. It's stuff like that that kind of just fleshes out the world, and that ties into what I was saying in the first time about how the cities in Bethesda games are generally really tight, like, small, but there's a lot of stuff in them, and you can tend to interact with everyone. Which I think some people will prefer that approach, and some people will prefer the Witcher approach, or the approach of a lot of other RPGs, where cities have a ton of unnamed characters, and they're just there to sort of be in the world and make it feel more like a city. Whereas here, as I mentioned before, Solitude doesn't really feel like a capital city. It feels pretty good as just a town, and like it does have a nice palace if you look over there, like the castle and everything is great, but there's not a ton here. And I think that's an issue with a lot of Skyrim. There's just not a lot going on for most of just the world. It's not quite as fleshed out as it could be. I think a good example is like Mountain Blade. It's a different scenario because that game's you're not exploring the entire world. You have an overworld map and you're going to towns and cities. But if you go to a town, they have a few shops with named people you can interact with. You can't really do any story stuff because that would be a bit ridiculous with how much dynamic stuff is in Mountain Blade. But like the towns themselves are big and they feel appropriately sized for what they are. Like if you go to a capital town or a capital city, it's a lot bigger than the outpost towns, and the villages feel like villages. They're small, there's a lot of farmland.
The Emperor's cousin Vittoria Vici is getting married soon. The reception will be public. Anyone in Solitude can attend.
Yeah, and I think it is a bit
What
odd
is
that
it?
guards call out to you.
What is
And
it?
like something I mentioned last time is that in Oblivion, if you're in Imperial City and you talk to a
Trouble?
guard, you'll get a bunch of options that are like, tell me about these things, or let me know
Let
how to
me
get to this
guess.
place. And even though I have a map, like I can look at the map, although to be fair, they don't show the locations of shops on here until you get to them, I think, or go inside. So I wish there was a system like that here. I can't recall if in Oblivion that system was in every town or if it was just Imperial City. I vaguely remember it being in every town, but I could be wrong. And yeah, chat, if I say something wrong, feel free to correct me, or if you're watching the VOD, just leave a comment, and I will address it in the next stream, or if it's in chat, as soon as I see it.
Disrespect the law and you disrespect me.
Yeah, we keep getting disrespect the law, that you disrespect me. It's just, these quotes get old very quickly.
Welcome to you.
It is a strange
I
sight.
welcome you, friend.
This war
Quite
rage,
different
opposite.
from
The
the
soldiers are some of our best customers. It was Risad's idea to come here now, while the land is in turmoil, where others saw only
Khajiit's
danger.
wares.
He
Yeah, it's like I like the whole story of the Khajiit, but there's not a lot going on. There's nothing really involving doing anything with them. I think it's why one of the most popular mods when Skyrim was pretty young was a Journey to Elsewhere, Road to Elsewhere, whatever it was, Moonpath to Elsewhere. That's what it was. Where it's one of the first mods that had a lot of content, a whole story focusing around the Khajiit. It was really interesting, and compared to a lot of what we have in Skyrim, it was just a nice way to explore a culture that you don't get to see a lot of. Like, most of Skyrim is just like, you see a lot of Nord culture, you see a lot of Dwemer stuff, a lot of the Reach, but you don't get a lot of stuff about, like, the weirder races. I think that's why a lot of people do want to see, like, a Elder Scrolls mainline game focused on a region that one of the beast races is in, just because it would be super interesting to see, because they're usually a lot weirder. Or, like, Vardenfell with the forests would be really cool. But I mean, what we're getting for 6 from what we've seen so far, which is admittedly almost nothing, it looks good. It's just we don't know what to expect. So I think if Bethesda listens to a lot of the feedback they've been getting, I think it has the chance to be one of the best RPGs we see. At the same time, I'm very worried that Bethesda won't listen to a lot of the feedback, because you can see it with a lot of stuff recently. Like, Doom just got DRM added, or not DRM, anti-cheat, that it really didn't need. They are removing it, so I think it does show they listen, but it seems like a similar situation to me as when paid mods were first happening, where they remove them, and then they're added back in a different form, and kind of worse, to be honest. Like, Creation Club, at least, is not tons of stuff, but Creation Club content is just almost universally worse than custom content that you can actually just download. And it costs a lot of money. Like, it's not the price range that I would expect for modded content, and from what I hear, the creators don't get a ton for it. They get paid a commission, and then that's what they get. They don't really get anything based on the sales, which for the game industry isn't too weird. Like, a lot of the time, artists will be just commissioned to do something. We're about to get into a fight, I think. Yeah, should come here. Sure. Yeah, that's another one of the issues. Just the combat's, it doesn't feel great. The melee is not super interesting. And one of the other problems I know we're gonna run into if I'm doing a spell sword type deal is that we won't be able to block, which is always super frustrating. Just because it feels like you don't have options in combat anymore, or you have to do the janky switching constantly to whatever you want to use. We'll take the steel sword. I don't know which armor class I want to stick with right now, so I think we're just going to keep what we have. Although I think we have heavy armor on. No, light armor. Aside from the shield. Where's the weapons? We want to favorite, unfavorite that, and favorite the steel sword. Put that on. Put that back. Breed warrior gives us a skill point. We'll take that. Let's check the chest. There we go. That is one thing. So the Switch version of Skyrim, you can do the lockpicking with motion controls, and it's admittedly not particularly difficult. The motion controls make it extremely easy, but it's still super cool. That's something that I love about Switch controls. Like, I think a lot of people undersell HD Rumble, but for little applications like that where you can just like use them to do something cool, I love the usage of it. And it's optional as well. Like, you can do it the normal way if you don't like doing that. Though we're playing on PC, so it's not an option for us. It doesn't particularly matter. Where is this wolf? There we go. And yeah, if audio needs to be changed on either my end or the game's end, let me know. I think it might be that the game is a little quiet right now, so I'm going to turn it up just a tad. Turn the effects up a little bit. Music up a little bit. Voice is all the way up. Turn footsteps to there. I think that'll be a little bit better. I don't want to raise the music too high so it doesn't overpower when I'm speaking. But I'd still like it to be audible. I can't actually tell if there's music playing right now. I don't think there is. Yeah, so we'll leave it there for now. Yeah, there's also like cool little locations like this, Dragon Bridge, I love this type of location because it looks extremely fantasy. It fits in with the Nordic vibe. I think a lot of people with Skyrim and Elder Scrolls in general are kind of pushing for realism, and my personal opinion on that is that it's really not necessary. We have realistic RPGs. If you want something super realistic, even though it's like Kingdom Come Deliverance isn't super realistic, it doesn't nail everything, but it's made by a smaller team, and it really nails the like medieval European feel. So if you're looking for something medieval European, that's the route I would go, or Mountain Blade or something like that. Well, the Mountain Blade isn't really medieval European either now. They're going a little bit lower tech than medieval. But yeah, I think it's... Skyrim and Elder Scrolls in general doesn't really need to stick to convention of landscape. Like, it doesn't bother me if mountains in Skyrim aren't the way mountains actually form. And I think for most people that's probably true. Because I think a lot of people love Morrowind, and Morrowind was super famous for having so many weird environments, and just like the mushroom trees, silt striders to get around on, stuff like that was just super cool. And we had this very different feeling environment with a lot of like classic RPG mechanics thrown in. Of course, Morrowind doesn't play super well now, but it's still like people love Morrowind's content and the environment. I think that's why you see so many projects that are working to put that into Skyrim's engine. It's just that rendition of Morrowind is so beloved that people want to see it in a better format. Okay, right here, we have this asset is not properly placed on this mountain, and I think in this case it's surprisingly noticeable because there are rocks going underneath this rock that doesn't have a texture there. Or the mesh doesn't continue. So yeah, it's just like small stuff like that. To be fair, it's super hard to check for that in a game like this because it's so big. And having people go around and just look at rocks all day is generally not what QA testers are doing. They'll do it for a little while, but if something gets missed or someone adds in stuff later, they're not going to have people review the entire place just to check for one missing rock like that. And that is the first thing we've noticed like that, although there might have been more in the scene. It's just I think that one was super noticeable. I think we should pick a goal for us to do. So right now we're over at Dragon Bridge. Morthal had a quest line going on. We're going to remove our marker. We don't need that. I think we may just follow the story path for now. We'll go to Riverwood. I don't want to really sit through all the dialogue of having to do Bleak Falls Barrow after we get... or after we talk to the Jarl, so I think we're just going to go do Bleak Falls now. We can talk to Lucan and grab his quest, although we don't really need to get the quest. We're going to get the claw anyway.
Well, one of us has to do something.
I said
well, one of us has to do anything.
No adventures, no theatrics, no thief chasing.
Well, what are you going to do then, huh? Let's hear it.
We are done talking.
Check something else with the audio. Yeah, we have the masters on the web. Good.
About this. Oh, a customer. Sorry you had to hear that.
Yeah, I think it's there's too much dialogue for him to be surprised he has a customer. I don't want to take this out. After I've come through this store, walked all the way over here, and like just sat there waiting while he was having an argument.
General store.
Let's look at what he's got. Is there anything we want? I don't really think there will be, but get spells. It's got some ingots. Clairvoyance can be useful, just in case we need to figure out where to go for something. Oak flesh is good if we want to do any type of alteration stuff, which we probably will. We got Fury, Ray Zombie. I think we're going to not buy anything from
I
him.
better get back to cleaning the
We don't really have much to sell either, so we will not do much with him. I'm not getting the quest because I just want to go get the thing and then bring it back to him. Because that'll let me describe some of the stuff I was talking about, where I think he'll just be surprised we have it and not really care. So we're just going to go grab the Golden Claw and the Dragonstone, bring these back to their respective quest lines. Let's see, how legible are these signs? Not super legible, to be honest. I think it's more because we don't really have a lot of light and I don't have a torch out. Wood, Markarth. We want to go up to Bleak Falls Barrow. We got the scripted wolf encounter that's going to happen in just a moment. I do think this is one sort of issue with Skyrim. There's not a lot of enemy variety. At least in the overworld for a while. Like Oblivion had the benefit of Oblivion Gates opening up stuff like imps and Daedra coming through. I thought there were 2 wolves that come. The other one is down here. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Like Skyrim has a lot of not a lot of imps, a lot of wolves. You fight a lot of wolves. You fight a few trolls. You've got your spiders, but there's not a bunch of unique enemies that you fight in the overworld. Which I think, depending on who you are, that's not really an issue. Because you do fight cool stuff in dungeons and all this story stuff. But I think the overworld itself could have used a pass at maybe putting some more interesting enemies. Like we had Oblivion had the classic goblins everywhere. I know there are some goblins in the DLC. But having those be like some nice low-level enemies would have been a nice variation from what we actually got. Which is basically just bandits. And bandits and wolves. And speaking of bandits, we have some bandits over here we're going to deal with. Let's see, do I have a power equipped? Just have his skin. We might as well go in with flames, so I can show my issue with the spell sword combat. So we do that. We can attack in a straight line like that, which doesn't look particularly good. How does that look if I'm doing this? Yeah, it looks goofy. It doesn't really look like it matches. Take all that. And whatever magic is there. Yeah, we can't block now, which is odd. I don't really see how having a hand with flames in it hinders you from blocking. The reality is it's because of the control scheme they went for. Having the triggers on controller and on the mouse, the left and right mouse, be the buttons you use means that you can't really have a dedicated block button when your block is bound to the right click if you're just using something. But I think the solution to that should have been to add a dedicated block button, not to remove the ability to block when you're dual wielding or using magic in your hands. And there is a concern that that would make the basic sword and board style feel a lot less rewarding because you don't really have anything unique you're doing. But the solution to that should have been give them something unique, like maybe your martial prowess gives you new moves in combat, or stuff like maybe some more advanced animations, better perks for using a sword and a shield together instead of just separate. But I think it comes down to the priorities were not on the combat for this game. Because I honestly feel that Oblivion has in my opinion, a better combat system with spells being bound to a different button, so that way you can always use your spell or ability when you are doing other things. I think feels a lot better, and it really lets you play the way you want to play. Whereas here, if I want to have a spell, I have to either go 2 spells or dual casting and opt out of melee entirely, or I have to go melee and spell, which doesn't give me the ability to block. And at that point, why am I in melee if I don't get the defense bonus of having an ability to block? There's not really a reason to be in melee. And I don't think I've ever tried to see if we can put our shield in our left hand. Can we just put flames in our other hand? We can. So now I can block and I can cast spells. But this looks super goofy. And it just doesn't feel like then I have no melee ability. So I think they're really missing something with having more variation to the combat by letting you do stuff like that. And I do wonder if it was a problem where it just wasn't in the cards, for some reason with their design it wouldn't fit, or something else. But yeah, I feel like a dedicated block button would have been the solution to that problem. there you would then have to come up with maybe a different system for casting spells or handling melee when you have that sort of situation. But there is definitely a better answer than not allowing it at all. Because even then, like, people don't have the option. And having more options in a game like this is generally what you want. Like right now, we could have gone through and fought everyone, but we're just going up the back around here. Although I don't know if we can actually get to the top from here. We may not. I may just have to go back around. Oh, no, we can. So I can come from the other direction and hopefully block the arrow. Not really. I don't remember if that is a perk or not. Yeah, we'll kill the bandits. Like, yeah, there's just not a lot going on here. And I can also just, like, stop and loot in the middle of combat, which is maybe not the best for the feel of the game. And as cool as kill moves are as a concept, they just don't... There's not a lot of impact to them. It doesn't feel like they really put a lot of time into making them feel good and have the weight they should have. It's like, I think a good example of looking at stuff that has a lot of weight to it is the KOTOR games 1 and 2, which are a good deal older than Skyrim, but the animations work out a lot better. They have the benefit of that being a like traditional RPG real-time pause combat system, so you're not looking at having to dynamically change animations, but there are ways to get around that. And I think it would make the combat feel a lot better in the long run. We're going to drop one of these, favorite that, unfavorite that. Just drop both of these. Might as well equip the mace. I don't really have any particular attachment to the sword. We can drop the old iron sword and iron mace since we have better stuff. I know I could be selling a lot of this, but I don't really want to mess with the economy that way. Did we take care of everyone? I feel like there was another bandit down here somewhere. Oh well. Just gonna go back inside. We'll go through our first dungeon. Sneak a little bit to try and get within view. Just take some stuff. We can do the classic stealth archer approach. I believe these guys will have a conversation if we get close enough. Yeah, so that's also weird. The Golden Claw quest just started.
I want my share from that claw.
It would make more sense if it waited until after the I want my share from that claw line happened. And like, she should be able to see us right now, 100%.
Huh?
Oh, we are not the best at aiming. They are not the best at looking for attackers. I think it's a good example of just the AI being a little bit wonky. Do that. Should move out the way. I'm not the best archer in these games. Just on the floor. I'm gonna do that. Put that away. Let's get out our melee gear. Take the arrows. I really want to go around collecting skeever parts. Let's get this chest. Come on. There we go. Stamina, great. Just one second. I'm going to check on Twitch and make sure everything's going good. It is. Great. Yeah, if there's anything that you want me to specifically check out and sort of give a commentary on, make sure to leave a chat message or a comment on the YouTube VOD. We'll try and get to that. I don't know what I just picked up. I picked up something outside. I think it's probably his weapon. It doesn't... Oh, his hunting bow. You don't need that. Yeah, I think the crypt look in these dungeons is actually pretty good. It is very clearly from a game that's aged a bit, because you can go up and like see quite clearly like all the pixelation of the textures. But from a distance it looks fine. Like if we get a third person, there's not really any problems. We can actually play in third person for a bit and show a few of the things with third person. So we go up here, but there's a chest. It might be on the other side. It's a little harder to see everything clearly with third person, but we'll go... Yeah, okay. Nothing over there. Go down this way. Yeah, third person does make stuff like looting from shelves a bit harder. Just because like your character is obscuring a lot of your view. That's not really a problem with the game though. That's just a third person thing in general. It's like, I think Skyrim and Elder Scrolls games in general are pretty clearly designed to be first person games. They have third person as an option, but it doesn't really play that great.
Is someone there?
Yeah, we can watch. Oh. Oh, we're not here. There's no one here. Ignore the Argonian. Yeah, he's coming for us. I'm kind of surprised you noticed us from that far away. Something I can't speak today. But yeah, even then, he's not spanning it out well. He's not really hard. And part of that is that we're on Adept. We're not on any higher difficulty setting. Like, I think that kill move comes out a lot better than some of the others. Take his torch. So I'll take his bracers if we don't have any. They're just better than the 4 gauntlets. So we'll drop the gauntlets. The music is actually a little loud now, so we'll go back and turn that down a little bit. There we go. Is that better? No, protect that. That sounds a little better. We'll keep it there for now unless someone says to change it. We'll level up. So we have a few options. If we want to do magic, we can go for some magicka to cast higher level spells. But that's not really a huge concern. So as long as we have the base amount of magicka we need to cast things, we're pretty good. If we get pretty heavily into enchanting. So I think for now we're just going to keep going with health. We'll definitely change it up soon. Don't need that. I don't have enough points to get one-handed 2. I don't really want to do block. I think we will spec into light armor. Although first we probably do want to get enchanting, because I think we want to get to this pretty quickly, so we don't have to get as many soul gem refills. Yeah, we definitely do want to get that for soul gem recharges. I do want to go for enchanting, although at the same time, I don't want to completely bork our combat. Light armor. I do like the light armor weighs nothing perk. Match set of light armor. Chance to avoid damage. It's also like a lot of stuff here is pretty boring. Like most of these perks are just increasing armor. Like this is a little bit more interesting in that it's actually a perk for light armor. Like it doesn't weigh anything and it doesn't slow you down. That's nice. The 50% stamina regen is, even though it's still just a percentage thing, is a valuable perk. Like you get that and you'll definitely feel a difference as soon as you get it. This evasion chance is always a good, it's something I like in games, but I think here it just doesn't feel great because it's a 10% chance. That's not going to be super effective. And I think a lot of the time in Skyrim fights, you're more wanting to avoid heavy hits. And it's also like, if you have an evasion thing, what would probably be a lot better feeling here is if this was some kind of like dodge that you could actually just activate, and that would give you like some invulnerability frames, turn the game to a little bit more of an action game. I think that would be a cool like peak perk for one of these, although that is something, if you want to show off your combat system, you would want to be lower. But yeah, these are just pretty boring bonuses. Almost all around. These two are okay, but yeah, just matching armor bonuses, increasing armor. It's a lot of the perks in Skyrim just aren't very interesting. And I think part of that issue is that the game is balanced around you getting those percentage boosts. So if you don't go for them and you go for like non-combat stuff, you're going to feel pretty bad in combat at the level you're at. So does heavy armor have anything better? See, this is a lot more interesting than the the dodge, even though it is still just like a 10% chance and it doesn't do a lot. Reflecting damage is just a little bit more interesting. 25% armor, 50% less stagger. And this makes sense for heavy armor, although that kind of seems like it should just be an innate bonus of heavy armor. And that light should maybe have the dodge chance as an innate bonus if you're doing dodge chance. Just because there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference between the two. Especially with Skyrim's enchanting system. Yeah, and then so this perk is a lot more valuable than the light armor one, because heavy armor weighs more and slows you down more. So this definitely has more of an impact. I think it is further up on the tree, so it does make sense. Let's see, what level does the light armor perk require? 50. Yeah, so it is lower on the tree here. But that then shows that I think the armor perks are still not very interesting. Heavy armor do their armor rating and extra damage. This is a cool perk. But Skyrim doesn't have a ton to support an unarmed playstyle. It is interesting, but there's just not a bunch to really justify doing this. I would love to see that in the game, but we really don't. Half damage from falling. Yeah, it's the heavy armor perks are just more interesting in general. I think the best perk for light armor is the fact that you get the additional stamina regen, which is pretty major. Which lets you do like more power attacks and whatnot, but it's all still just percentage bonuses. And a lot of the stuff like stamina regen and everything can be made up for with enchanting. It's not a huge deal if you don't have it. Or potions. You could just down potions constantly. So yeah, I think we're probably going to spec into heavy armor, just because I think this is a little more interesting. Half falling damage. These bonuses are a little bit more valuable. The armor bonus with heavy armor does more because heavy armor's got higher base. Yeah, we're probably going to go down the heavy armor tree. For now, I probably will just pick up the either enchanting or smithing. So we do want both of these. Actually, I think we want this as early as possible so we can have enchanted stuff and improve it. So let's get steelsmithing. Although it's gonna take us a while to get our smithing up because we haven't really done it so far. Which way was I going here? This way. Got the famous Skyrim turn the thing to match the thing puzzles. Middle is snake. And the last is whale. Alright. Activate this. I do actually like that they tutorialize this by having that guy come in and do it. We missed it because he noticed us. It's probably just due to us not having a good sneak skill. Or not really trying to sneak very much. Let's grab the potion and soul gem. And thief for the skill bonus. I think I will do at some point a stream of reading through some of the books as well. Because I think they are... Some of them are good, some of them are not. But it is nice to kind of look through them and see that they did put a lot of effort into making these books. Yeah, so I think next time we kill someone with a set of heavy armor, we're going to take it and use it. Oh. As much as I do think the light stamina bonus is good. Because like we're using so much of our stamina just doing one power attack. And the stamina regen is pretty slow, but we can always make up for that with enchanting. Scroll of fireball. Yeah, and something I wish they had would be like a classic Vancian magic system of if you find a scroll of a spell, you can use it, or you can keep it around for a little while and maybe transcribe it into your spellbook type thing. That's always something that I think is a lot of fun with classic magic systems. I don't think the Elder Scrolls has ever really followed that type of system, but that would be a cool thing to have. Like one of my favorite things about the Ordinator perk overhaul is that you have the option of playing a Vancian mage who has like limited spell slots, but they're much more powerful. Which stands out to me as just being something that it would be really cool to see more playstyles like that in Skyrim. Because I think Skyrim, if you play Skyrim, you're gonna fall into one of a few archetypes almost all the time because the game doesn't really support other archetypes. You're gonna be probably either a mage, a melee person or a stealth person. There's not really any overlap between a lot of them. Like, from what I remember, stealth mages aren't really a thing because you don't tend to get the stealth bonus for spells. I know there are mods that add that, and then maybe there might be a high tier perk in base game that does it that I never got to. But yeah, that's always something that stood out to me. I think we can actually look in the sneak skill and see if there's any with one-handed weapons with bows and daggers, but there's nothing for spells. I actually think that the sneak skill line is interesting. Like, this kind of thing is a lot more unique because you can actually like force the archers to look around. You get the silent roll, which is a really cool skill. Not triggering pressure plates is just a nice thing. Like, a lot of these perks feel more impactful. And like sneak attacks with daggers do 15 times. That's a really great perk for if you want to do a dagger playstyle. Even though that is kind of hard to do with the game, but the AI tends to be bad enough that you can get around it. I think, unlike a lot of people, I don't have a ton of issues with the AI not being great. I think of an RPG, the general combat AI is one of the last things I look to. Poison's great. Yeah, I would love if stuff like poisoning was a little bit more threatening, more valuable in combat for you to use poisons. So I think right now, like, paralysis has a lot of value, but actual poisons don't seem to do a whole lot. There is a perk that I think is really cool in, I think it's in alchemy. You have the select a weapon, 2 ingredients, all negative effects are removed. Maybe it's not in... It might be a mod perk, actually. I know there is at least a mod that adds the ability to place poisons on people in their pockets. It might be pickpocket, actually. I thought it was in the base game. We'll see. There's extra pocket, keymaster. I got equipped weapons and items. Only harm enemies by placing... Yeah, that's it. Poisons. Only harm enemies by placing poisons in their pockets. That's really cool. It's not incredibly useful. Like, there's not a ton of positions where you really want to do that. But it is a cool option to have.
It's coming loose. I can feel it.
Powerful.
Devin, fool. Why should I share the treasure with anyone?
It's running away. There we go. Purple's journal. Take those. Don't really need any of his other gear. We'll take the soul gem. Yeah, something I do wish was in Skyrim, and I might add a couple mods as we continue playing just for quality of life. The big one is there's a mod that basically adds the Fallout quick menu to all these types of items, and I think that is just a much better system for looting. It's a lot more streamlined. It just saves a little bit of time when doing stuff. And we're not going to try to sneak by these guys. We're just going to go straight up and beat them up. Yeah, I think it is... I wish the Draugr would actually react a little more when you're killing them in their spawn animations. Because right now, nothing really happens. Bone meal, gold. I don't really want the battle axe. 4x isn't better than what we have. I think these are on par with steel. Yeah, we just avoid the pressure plate. Let's go ahead and equip flames to deal with some of these guys. Let's pump some damage out into them. Yeah, it's just like having to do stuff like using flames, then going back in to get my shield out. Just feels really... Oh man, it didn't come out for some reason. Just feels awkward. It's a bit of a weird thing to have to do that. Like, even you could do something quality of life. This would be... You definitely want this to be a toggle option and not a main thing, but you could have it so that when your magicka hits low and you can't cast the spell you're casting anymore, you could have it auto-swap to whatever you want it to be. So that way you can open combat with a spell. I really should have let myself heal before going in here. Well, I think we're fine. So we'll level up. I think we want to go for stamina this time so we can block and hit more. We can't do anything else here. Do we have one-handed up? We do. Let's grab power attacks. One-handed power attack while sprinting. Backwards power attack with a 25% chance to paralyze. Yeah, these are all interesting. I mean, they're not super useful. The decapitation one is pretty cool. I think we will go up to that. We're probably going to stick with maces, I think. The armor tends to be a big factor. Swords, I think, are the least interesting thing. Critical damage, it just doesn't feel super impactful because you don't really tend to notice it. Whereas with maces ignoring armor, they're just going to hit harder. And attacks with war axes cause bleeding. Bleeding is just very thematically fitting with axes. Whereas swords just having a crit chance seems kind of like they didn't really know what else to do. Like, yeah, here's the dual wielding benefits. You get faster attacking and power attacks do bonus damage. Neither of these are, in my opinion, worth losing out on the ability to have a shield or do something else. Yeah, we're just gonna go for more damage right now. That'll blanket make us better. Save over that. We don't really need to keep a bunch of old saves around. I know somebody's shooting at me, but I want the chest. Alright. Yeah, I think generally the animations feel pretty good for these guys. We'll take the arrows and the bow. I don't know if that bow is better. Let's look. Hunting bow is 8. Our bow's 9. We'll drop the hunting bow, take the north bow. Come on. Apprentice lock. This shouldn't be a problem. You know, I always regret saying things like that. We just took the hunting. You know what? I'll just sell the hunting bow later. We'll keep it for now. We have an extra. There we go. Stop the blades. Well, there's not really a point in stopping them because we're not going to come back through here. Nothing over here. Yeah. We've got you. Let's do some power attacks to get rid of them. I do like the look of the Ancient Horde weapons. I think they do, like, if you're going to have weapons that look weirdly gamey, the ancient stuff tends to be where you should do that. Like, the maces tend to look fine. It's just like, if I take the steel sword, this thing doesn't really feel like a normal sword. It's so broad. Like, it doesn't match the aesthetic I think it really should. I did talk a lot about realism, how I don't think it really has a place past a certain degree in Elder Scrolls, but to some degree it's cool to see like the designs of things match what they would look like in real life, at least to some degree. Oh, come on. You're down. You're just a normal one. For some reason I thought it was useless. Yeah, like we don't even have to really normally block. It's just very stand there until one of you takes enough damage to fall down. Which I think is the least interesting approach to combat. This is why I'm really curious to see stuff like Cyberpunk coming out and how it'll change the way combat is handled in a lot of these games. Because I think in Elder Scrolls it really is kind of treated as an afterthought. Things are super numerical, but even then, like, the benefit of classic RPGs is that you have all those options. You get skills like, even for just melee characters, you get a lot of skills that let you do cool and flashy things in combat. And that's in games like Pillars of Eternity and whatnot. And yeah, those are a very different style of game, but I think the approach to combat is oddly similar. Except those games are, because they're turn-based or real-time, they have the ability to let you use all these cool abilities without running the risk of not doing, or not feeling good. which I think is where Skyrim's combat tends to fall, is right into the, it feels passable but not great. And for some reason, I went back and played Oblivion pretty recently, and for some reason to me, the combat in Oblivion almost feels like it has more responsiveness. I think it may just be that you have more easily accessible options in Oblivion. The combat's not as reactive, like you don't do there's not really kill cams, at least that I'm remembering. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think there is. Yeah, we'll come over here. And combat does get a little more interesting. Like, I guess you can say the spell sword style fits with shouts, and that's kind of an archetype. But that's not really what I think most people think of when they think of spell swords. And as I mentioned earlier, it does lock you into that archetype of being a Dragonborn and not really getting to do exactly what you want your character to do, which Oblivion has the benefit of, like, your character can do whatever you want your character to be, because there's not a story role for your character outside of them helping Martin and the Blades. You can still kind of make your character whoever you want them to be. What have we got going on over here? Come on. And yeah, these dungeons they're not amazing, but they're not that bad. I think a lot of people have a lot of issues with Skyrim's dungeons. I don't really feel the same. Because to a certain degree, I think a lot of people that play RPGs don't really care if the game is grindy or if the dungeons look pretty samey. They just want to have the content to play through. And any bonuses are always nice. But yeah, I think some of the effort really should have been more focused into improving the base feel of the combat, because that goes a long way and it affects pretty much every aspect of the game in ways that, like, a lot of the minor stuff don't. Bleak Falls Sanctum. I gotta see if I still remember the I think I know the Golden Claw combination without having to look at it. So I played this section of the game so many times. And yeah, I think part of that problem is that the main story locks... Oh, I screwed that up. The main story locks the Dragonborn abilities past a certain bit of it, so if you're not doing the main quest, you don't get shouts, which feels a little odd. It's not a huge deal, and I think it's certainly one of the minor issues, because you can just, like, ignore the main quest, like we were doing it up until now. Which is low. It's good. Pause of the arm. Let's use some of our health potions. Let's get back up. But yeah, I'm not going to complain about the difficulty or anything, because I'll mention it because this is the default difficulty, but we're not using mods. We're using just add-up difficulty. So, and you have the option of raising or lowering it, so I don't really see any reason to really talk at length about the difficulty, aside from the fact that, like, the difficulty approach a lot of this game uses is just health and damage scaling, which is a pretty lazy approach to game design. It works because it's easily adjustable, and you can really tune those numbers to fit with where you want the damage to be. But at the same time, like, it's the least interesting. It doesn't add any replay value. Whereas stuff like new attacks for enemies, or more, like, changed loot variables, maybe having good loot be less likely to spawn, so you have to take more time to kind of gear up your character. Stuff like that is probably generally a better approach to making the game a little bit more difficult in ways that are very different. So if I remember correctly, it's just 2 on all of these. Let's see if I got this right. Yep. Alright, great. Yeah, it's also like these puzzles aren't particularly interesting. It's the same thing every time. After you've done one, you've done all of them. There are a few dungeons that have some more advanced stuff in them, but generally it boils down to the same loop of just, like, changing some statues on the walls or something to match whatever they're supposed to match. Go ahead and save here. I do tend to save a bit excessively. If I remember correctly, we've got some loot over in this corner. Maybe it wasn't this corner. Just, yeah, here it is. Okay. I had to make sure I wasn't going crazy. Silver sapphire necklace. We'll take all of that. Yeah, we can't get back around that way. And I think past a certain point, like, loot like this will start to feel meaningless after you've found a bunch of it. But it is still nice to have those little rewards for exploring. Especially in an RPG. Because it gives you incentive to just check all over the place. And this, and then we'll wreck this guy. We could open the chest first, to be honest, but it's fine. Oh, shot it. Yeah, like the combat is decently reactive when you're using a shield and can actually like block and parry and like counter attacks, but for the most part you're not going to be doing that with the game. Staff of Courage. Definitely equip the steel armor. So we can start moving into the heavy armor tree. Put these away now. How are we doing on carry weight? Decent. Okay. And carry weight is something else. I think opinions on carry weight tend to differ pretty heavily. In my opinion, it's a pretty boring way to handle inventories. And in all honesty, I think carry weight is like the least impactful thing in Skyrim. I think a lot of people will just mod it out and increase it to whatever because it's not super fun to do inventory management. In this kind of game, especially with like Hearthfire installed where you want to keep a ton of random stuff to put inside your homes. It's just not super interesting, especially in the case of like Fallout 4 with all the junk you have to carry around. And like it's even worse in Fallout 76 where you have to have like a premium subscription to get a junk holding pack. Take these flowers and skull, I guess. Stone ability. Yep. Okay, we loaded too quickly. This dumps us out over here. I'm curious, how much does the Dragonstone weigh? It's a misc. 25. Oof. That's another problem. Like there are moments where you get some really heavy items just added to your inventory. Oh, are we stuck? We're stuck. Oh, there we go. We're stuck for just a moment. So yeah, there are moments in especially, and I think Dawnguard does this, where you get some Elder Scrolls that are added to your inventory that you can't remove for whatever reason for a long time. Maybe, I think if you keep them, it's just the entire game. So you literally just can't. You have like these 20-pound things just taking up space in your inventory for no reason. Like stuff like that is just dumb to me. And that's something that I think they should have very clearly seen him and like, yeah, players are going to get really angry at this, and why can they not deposit these objects somewhere? But like all the time, like Skyrim looks decent when it's like this. You have nice trees and everything in the background. At the same time, there are times when it looks really bad. But I'm not really here to do a critique of the visual style of the game, because it's definitely not what I'm going to be tackling. And I think there are tons of mods that improve this. You get a lot of the HD overhauls and whatnot, and retextures of stuff. Let's do this. Oh. Didn't even do anything there, just died. That's how the wolves go down now. Yeah, we got the little camp over there. And the standing stones. There's not really much to look at over here from my memory. Little shack. This way. Let's see what this is. He's got like an abandoned, oh, Anissa's cabin.
I'm just a poor old woman, dear.
Yeah, I'm certain you're just a poor old woman, Anise. We're not gonna bother you right now. I think, like, one of the things that always bothers me with Skyrim is there's not a lot of dynamic events. So I think right now there are a lot of, like, roguelites that are super popular right now. And they have a lot of the elements that I think people love in those games. It's stuff like Slay the Spire has these question mark events where you can go and just something random will happen and you can kind of make some character building choices out of that that can affect how you play the game and kind of build a backstory for your run. I think stuff like that is something that really is missing from Elder Scrolls a lot of the time, like having events such as like have some named character events that can pop up randomly. We sort of have that with Dragonborn. I think it's Dragonborn DLC. I don't remember what the title of that DLC is, but you get the Murok cultists that come and attack you at level 10, stuff like that. Although I think that the problem with the Murok stuff is it happens super predictably. It's like as soon as you hit level 10 and go to a major area, they'll come and get you. But there really should be more dynamic stuff like that, I think. Like Oblivion had the benefit of one of the most famous things was the Dark Brotherhood questline, where in order to get it, you had to kill someone in cold blood, and it could be like any NPC, but you had to kill someone. So a lot of people would like debate who is worth killing in their game to get that quest line. And I think that's something that's super cool, is to have events like that. And even here, like, we don't have that option anymore. You have to do a very specific quest to join the Dark Brotherhood. And the woman you're killing is also, like, pretty unquestionably bad and not a good person. So I think it's almost like they're trying to make the Dark Brotherhood seem less like an assassin murder cult than I think they should be. Because I think that's really what's fun about them. Because here they almost play out like just a mafia, where they're essentially people will request them to do jobs and they'll choose to do them if they think they should do them. But it doesn't really feel like they're the same kind of cult they were in Oblivion. So yeah, I think we're pretty decently into this now. We're about an hour in. So I think I'm going to end just about here. We're going to give the Golden Claw back first. Finish this part of the quest line out.
My sister Camilla or I will be happy to... yeah, an ornament. So, you found it!
Yeah, this is the same line that he says if you bring it back to him normally.
I'm gonna put this back where it belongs. I'll never forget this.
It's also like, this is a weird bit. So there's also this whole side story here about Camilla Valerius. Camilla, I already got it back. You said that after I got your claw back. Camilla kind of being like the love interest of these two SETI boys over here. We got Sven and Faendal somewhere. And the thing that bothers me about that quest is both Sven and Faendal will ask you to do the same bad thing if you talk to them first. So I think it's just like weird stuff like that, where it really doesn't seem like they put a ton of thought into the characters of Sven and Faendal. They're just like, they're just going to be the love-struck rivals. And they didn't really put any thought into making them have more depth than that, which I think is a shame, because there's a lot of companions like that in this game. I think that's why a lot of people like roll with Serana as soon as they get her, because she has a ton of interesting dialogue and character options, but a lot of the NPCs here don't. That's really obvious too. I remember there's I think he's a priest outside Dawnstar who I found really interesting, but he really didn't have any backstory. It's just stuff like that. It's also why companion mods are so popular, just because the companions in the base game generally don't have a ton to them. I don't know if Dragonborn has any companions that are of the quality that Serana is. Although at the same time, like, Serana has a ton of bugs too, which is weird. Like, I think one thing I definitely will install soon is the unofficial patch set, because right now it's I haven't done anything to the game or any mods. But I know how to do all the setup for that, so I'll probably get that done. Because I don't want to play with any mods that'll alter the game, but stuff like that. At the same time, the bugs I think are useful to talk about, so we'll see. I'll make a decision on that, and if you have opinions on that, put it in the chat or comments. and I'll choose whether or not we do some basic quality of life mods. That, to be honest, that does kind of undercut the point of these videos. So we'll think about it. Yeah, it's like here, I think this is where Skyrim looks its worst. When you look out over to the open fields. Like, Whiterun looks pretty good from the outside. And then you look over to the side and you just see these, like, flat plains with very little height variation and extremely low detail. I think that just, it looks bad. The lighting is not great there either. I'm really hoping Elder Scrolls 6, when we eventually do get around to it, pushes the visual boundary a little bit. And it's not even like a problem of needing better mesh quality or anything. I think a big part of it is just the lighting engine and kind of overhauling how lighting looks and how it affects things. Like right here, we just kind of get this super bright effect on all these. They don't look great. There's not a lot handling. If we go that way, we're going to encounter the Dark Brotherhood guy and have to fix his wagon, which I don't really want to do. But yeah, I think we're pretty close to the end here. I've talked about most of what I want to talk about here, and I think we will definitely be back. What I might end up doing is making some plans for specific things I want to hit up in these videos, and we'll go and look at them. And also, if people have mod ideas that they want to see, small things preferably, because I'm going to be working on this stuff for the first time, but I do want to start working on the mod that I want to do. And I've had a few ideas. There's stuff that I could do that is focusing on like improving the base game. What we'll deal with you. A combat mod I think I could do, but at the same time, a lot of people have already done those combat mods, and I think they've done a great job of them. Like the TK overhaul is great. You have a bunch of difficulty rebalances. I think there's a few AI rebalances, which I remember we got that note. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that have already done that kind of thing, and I don't really want to encroach on other people's stuff. And I also want to decide if I want to stick to do something more friendly or really just get creative. One idea I've had for a little while that I think would be pretty fun is to start putting in some spells based off of D&D and do some like a D&D 5e spellbook type thing. Especially if I could get like a fancy magic system working that is separate from ordinary. So this is going to kill us if we stay here. So we're going to go. The bandit chief is a little bit strong. I could just chug potions to really get out of the way of that, but if we leave, they'll stop bothering us. They gone? Still got combat music playing. I don't think they're following us. Yeah, I think we're pretty good. So yeah, that's my general opinion on the modding stuff right now. But I will definitely look at ideas if they're left in the comments. The time frame for that will be a little weird. And I may do some creation kit streams once that starts up. We'll see if there's any interest on that. Oh, we've got some wolves to take care of. We'll take care of these wolves, and then I think we'll end there. Oh, and they're going somewhere. I don't think the wolves knew how to get to the spot I was at. Oh, are they following us? I see the markers on the compass over there. Yeah, it's like little moments like that I think the AI could be improved. Their pathfinding really isn't great. But that's not really my specialty, so I'm probably not going to do anything along those lines. And it's also like that. I feel like that's a pretty minor thing. Like, it doesn't really bother me that the wolves start running that way and then run back when I move up to them. That's never really been a huge deal for me. Although I think it would be really cool to see some more advanced combat AI for stuff like formations and whatnot. But a lot of Skyrim is like not super optimized, so I think that's part of the problem with doing that is the AI can quickly become unstable when you start adding too much to it. It's also scripting mods for Skyrim can tend to be unstable. I think Special Edition is a little better than the old edition. Are these dead? We just have dead slaughterfishes? Alright. I'll take some scales. Yeah, so I think this is where we're going to end for today. Because I do have to get going today. Unfortunately, it has to be a bit of a short stream. But I'll be back either... I might be back tonight for an unplanned late night stream. Definitely will be back tomorrow night. And I think Wednesday we might have some stuff planned. we definitely have a big Friday ahead of us. So, yeah, that's the plan for the rest of the week. And if you guys are watching on the VOD, check it out live. The Skyrim streams tend to happen on Fridays, but today's a Monday. Usually they're on Fridays. So we'll do that generally. But yeah, and I also do a podcast, 001 Radio, on Sunday or Saturday nights, not Sunday nights. Saturday nights at 7 on the Mega Match Twitch channel. And you can also catch those VODs at YouTube. Those are not uploaded to the Mega Match channel. They're uploaded to 001 Radio's channel, which if you search 001 Radio, you'll probably find us pretty easily. It's the big logo with a circle. It's that. So yeah, if you want to check those out, that's where you can find them. If you have any comments on the mod approach or anything you want me to look at in Skyrim and kind of give a critique on, I think next time we might do some side quests, or maybe just continue the main quest for a little bit and talk about that. But yeah, I think for today, that will be our endpoint. Let's go ahead and do our last save. Alright guys, I will see you whenever the next stream starts, which will probably be tonight. Decently late. Where did my mouse go? Skyrim doesn't always cooperate with the mouse, but alright. Let's have a good day, everyone.